Chapter 81. Righteous Knight, 2, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Seeing Yuechang's happy expression, she lightly smiled. Although she preferred to see his face covered in despair more so than anything else, she must endure. The commands from the Savior were absolute. She must accumulate as much amiability as possible with this guy in front of her, and proceed cautiously. Soon after the meal, she began to eat together with Yuechang, as the chilly atmosphere changed to a cozy one. After every meal, he would request her for an after-meal event, but she would always decline, stating that she has to go do something. Ahayan would decline his invitation, and after deciding that they would meet the day after, they would part ways. The moment Ahayan entered the room, she joyfully and hurriedly sent the message over. Savior.nim. Savior.nim, Beck Ahayan. From that familiar voice, Ahayan's hips trembled once again. Just his voice alone caused her to feel as if she was wet. Is there any progress? Yes, yes. There is, Savior.nim. I'm not sure of the exact date, but soon, the Holy Order within Legius will leave for an expedition. Elaborate. Yes, yes. To be honest, the Holy Order has been investigating a clan of murderers over here in AIA, and have finally reached here in the end. It seems that young Yuechang has been assigned the mission of finding and eliminating the murderer clan. Interesting. Yes, and I'm not too sure, but I think I can accompany them in the expedition too. Savior.nim. From the speechless answer on the other side, she suddenly bit her lips. She was worried if she had crossed the line and interfered with the plan. However, fortunately, that was not the case. After a brief silence, the Savior's voice began pouring down once more. Well done. When we meet next time, I will give you a reward. Tell me what you want. It was totally eye-opening news. Subconsciously, she became so excited that she jumped up from her seat. But Ahayan calmed down her excited self, and sat down. It wasn't even proper to ask the Savior for something when she was saved by him. In the end, despite knowing that she would regret this, she teared up, as she held her inner desires within herself. I don't need a reward. It's not proper for an award. As long as you treat me like this, I will be sufficiently thankful. You are truly a loyal follower. How could I not cherish you? I am always thankful to you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It felt as if all the emptiness in her heart from this entire day had been filled up in one go. Ahayan shook her hips once again from the pleasure. It would be good if you can acquaint yourself with him more closely. Don't worry, my young follower. I will not ask of you for anything else. Your body is wholly yours, always remember this fact. Yes. Yes. Savior.nim, every single hair on my body is all yours, Savior.nim. All of me is yours, Savior.nim. Her whole heart was filled with joy. It truly felt as if the heavens were opening up, as this moment was the most happiest after arriving to the continent. For some reason, she thought she wouldn't be able to sleep tonight, so she held her reddened cheeks with her trembling hands. That recent dialogue continued to resonate inside her head. Thus, Ahayan blissfully smiled. And a few days later, Ahayan began to aggressively meet with Yuechang. Thanks to that, Yuechang misunderstood the situation himself by thinking that he was dating her, but it wasn't a great deal of a problem. Of course, all of this was to use him as a sacrifice, in Ahayan's perspective. As such, Ahayan did not really say much to the tone of voice that Yuechang spoke to her with. Ahayan, is it alright if we can hang out together today? I'm sorry. I have another matter I must attend to today. As time passed, young Yuechang became bolder. No matter how much these actions were done for the Savior, she was extremely displeased. Even now, it was the same. Whenever he extended his hand to touch her, she hurriedly pushed it away. After being reborn, every single hair on her body was Savior's possession. As such, she could not let a man touch her, ever. Seeing Yue Chang's expression, that looked like he thought that he had committed a grave mistake, Ahayan slowly spoke. I'm sorry. Truthfully, I'm still a bit uncomfortable. No. I understand. I was too rash. I'm sorry. Interestingly, this had made Yue Chang cherish her even more as a result. At this time, Ahayan thought that she would never forget his expression. The plan was also proceeding slowly. The archers were slowly catching onto the hidden location of the clan of murderers, and all that remained was when they would leave for the expedition. Ahayan returned to her room and communicated this with Savior once more. I began to plan slowly and accordingly with Hakugen. Ahayan was working hard, far more than I had ever imagined. To be honest, I wanted to get rid of her due to the possibility of her unique ability and the ticking bomb, but I decided to monitor her for now. But later, I decided that there was no need to be cautious. The first reason was because her mind was extremely broken. Second of all, she would blindly follow me, who had rescued her from the depths of hell. As such, there was no need for this side to worry. But, if a seed she planted were to explode, it would be an utterly ridiculous event in itself. What she needed was not uncertainty, but trust. Interestingly, this unexpected plan, that wasn't even devised properly, was proceeding well beyond my expectations. Your body is yours. From that simple remark, she was extremely ecstatic. In the beginning, her class was a pagan. It was because she believed in me that she attained her special class. Knowing that there was no way that she would betray me, the current results that she was producing were beyond my imagination. For instance, if I told her to commit suicide, I bet that she would commit suicide. She may be blind, but she's competent. So much so that I began to pity the guy named Young Yuechang. At this time, I received a signal from Ahayan, so I injected mana into the ring and connected. Savior.nim. My apostle. Yes. I am Savior's apostle. I am Savior's possession. Speak. Yes. Although I cannot determine the exact date, it seems that the Holy Order has succeeded in tailing the murderer clan. In case the clan of murderers might take notice of this and escape, the security is currently on high alert. Forgive me for not providing more details than this. It's all right. You did very well. Don't show impatience, and do your best, taking care of your body along the way. I do not want you to become hurt. Yes. Sniff. Thank you. Yes. My body is solely Savior's. I will never allow myself to be hurt. Savior.nim. After that last sentence, I disconnected the line. It was a bit emotional, hearing Ahayan be so teary like that. She is the perfect example of someone who has truly lived a hellish life. I was the only pillar that she could lean on, and seeing her work her hardest for me made me reconsider wanting to have her by my side. However, she is much more useful being among the humans. From what I've recently heard, her followers have increased their members to 40, and some of them have even received the class of martyrs. In other words, these guys were long-term pieces I could utilize whenever. I thought that it could be useful for them to participate in this operation if needed. It wasn't like the Holy Order and the Sky Dragon Guild did not train porters. Even if they may not be porters, there'll always be a need for someone weak who could do labor for the strong. I nodded my head, as I turned around. My subordinates had surrounded me awaiting my attention once I disconnected with Ahayan. All of my executives, including Gark, Hark, the 3 Goblin Sisters, Hakugen, Heian, Miv, and even Regia, as well as all of the clan officials, were anticipating the upcoming battle. Of course, in the situation regarding the 5 siblings, this kind of meeting did not help them at all. But, it was still experience. Just like how your strength improved with training, it was the same with this scenario. They may be pure, but since they're not stupid, there will come a time when I'll need to hear their opinions. I began to relay the conversation I had with Ahian, and soon their faces beamed with delight. Hachigen spoke first. But we cannot deduce where the battle will be held, this fact is somewhat quite troublesome. It can't be helped as they emphasize security over anything else at this moment. But, locating where two human groups are fighting and struggling like this, it feels like the position where it'll occur should be quite limited. Especially with how one side is hiding, it should be more so. It should be limited to either a forest, or cave, or even a cleared dungeon. As such, if it were me, I would consider the few possibilities available and head into action. That is probably likely. As the meeting began to slowly proceed, Regia began to look towards us and speak. But is there really a need for them to wait? It was an extremely cautious tone. But I think I knew what Regia was referring to. MEV, realizing what she was implying, quickly spoke before Regia could continue. Don't you think we can find the location of the murderer clan ourselves, Captain? Normally, Regia would be the one landing a blow at MEV, but it felt like she was done in this time. From MEV's suggestion, the three goblin sisters were staring at her surprised. MEV. MEV's brain is strange. Looking over at Regia, it seems that she wasn't too concerned with this as I saw her smiling from the reactions. Can you find it? If the humans have found it, then there's no reason why we can't either. Since our base is in the forest, we'll surely be able to discover it. That confident tone of MEV's was quite cute. Truly, if MEV could discover where the murderer clan was located, then it would increase our options. Hachigen nodded at MEV's plan, and the heavy-lipped Heian spoke after being silent for a long while. I will start setting up roots in the vicinity. Since it could be some help in investigating. I nodded. It may not be as talented as the Holy Order, but our tribe was competent. Soon, we decided to investigate the areas that Hachigen had narrowed down for us. Usually, it should have been Regia who was advising me, but seeing MEV aggressively come forth and take the credit, Regia had no choice but to step back. As such, MEV's pride went up by another level. After the meeting had concluded, everyone left the tent for their own individual responsibilities. MEV and Heian quickly departed from the tent, while the loyal 5 siblings and Hachigen bowed to me extensively with their hands on their chests before leaving as well. For Blood Dagger. For Blood Dagger. If there was one aspect which was strange, it was why Regia hadn't left, as she was staring at me. Looking at her curiously, she began to slowly display her snake tongue and spoke. Since our prime executive is so passionately working, I have nothing to do. I was asking if it would be alright to spend some time together for a while. Seeing Regia slowly approach me, I belatedly realized that it, in fact, somewhat dealt a blow to MEV, and not the other way around. TL afterward Calvies. That Regia is so damn cunning and sly. The perfect, and most dangerous, woman to have by your side. TL notice. Not applicable PR afterward Psi 101. I wonder if the righteous knight needs saving from the clan of murderers. BM. I wonder how notorious this clan of murderers is, and what loot they have on them. PR notice. New schedule will be posted on the Discord server in the following days. Also, Calvies and us minions have taken, I Am the Monarch, under our wing, so look forward to that. Link to the Discord server. Translator. Calvies proofreader. Psi 101, Borderline Masochist. Chapter 82. Righteous Knight, 2, you are listening at novelfull.audio. In the past, I hadn't heard of Young Yuechang entering a nearby forest, especially in Legius to hunt down a murderer clan. It might be because the security was very thorough, or that the future has somewhat changed. The possibility of the latter was a bit higher. Since it is one of the main factors which could promote a clan or guild, if it was supposed to have happened, then it is appropriate to say that at least I would have known. The reason why the future had changed is also simple. Since the current Legius was much more prosperous than the Legius of the past, it was also subject to added prey by murderer clans who also moved over in search of targets. I remember the small, but infamous Spider clan, consisting of small, but powerful elites. All of them were around the intermediate level, similar to Black Spear in terms of power and strength. Although they were mostly hunted down and killed by the Queen of the North, their clan clearly survived until I died. And the other one was the Hound clan, where those guys were elites as well. If the Spider clan consisted of a few elites, then these guys had a lot of decent players. Other than them, I don't know of any others, but with their identities not being revealed just yet, if we had to choose which Yung Yuechang was hunting down, narrowing it down to these two basic assumptions, it was more likely that he was pursuing the Hound clan. The reason was because of their base being located in the west, and above all, the current Yung Yuechang would not be able to deal with the Spider clan. Unless the Holy Order were fools, they would never send Yung Yuechang against the Spider clan. As a right-hand man of the Saint Sword, he would become a powerhouse in the continent as the Righteous Knight. Though I did not have any personal grudges against him, the fact that I had the opportunity to get rid of him now was truly pleasing. I had already killed off some of the beginners who would grow their way into being an elite. Not just me, but Solji would have also done this before heading to the north. She would have done whatever she could to destroy the potential of the Red Cross clan from growing. If I were to capture the current Righteous Knight, who was under protection for 3 years, then the Holy Order I knew of would have had their total power reduced by over half. Of course, it wasn't like I had not thought of the possibility of reducing the power of the Holy Order to deliver them to the Queen of the North. The Saint Sword, who pretended to be kind, was someone who could never bend her knees. First of all, even if a war were to not have occurred, Solji would definitely ignite the flames of war herself. Whether it's her or myself, we both have the same purpose. After roughly organizing my thoughts, I began to sense a presence from outside. I told her to enter, and MEV soon walked in. She had an ambiguous face, implying that things had not proceeded smoothly as anticipated. Found it? No, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to report that I have found it or that I'm not sure. Anyhow, our mission was to locate the place that Hakugen narrowed down for us first, and trace the tracks of the humans from the city second. Yeah. To be honest, I could not find the traces of those humans from the city at all, but I did find a place where they could be staying. Of course I haven't confirmed yet, but the possibility is high. The fact that MEV could not find any traces of the Holy Order meant that the competence and standards of those humans were very high. It wasn't like MEV had awakened her unique ability yet, but her ability to track and trace down humans was exceptionally competent. Although it is a bit far before they can fly, they definitely live up to their name as the Holy Order. I bit my lip as I spoke to MEV. Where is the place you tracked them to? It's the earthworm den, which is far away in this direction. Are they underground? I'm not sure. It felt like it was too burdensome to enter inside, so I just scoured the outskirts. I nodded to MEV, knowing that she had gone for the safe and appropriate decision. It definitely looked like a earthworm den, but I couldn't find any hints of earthworms there. No, rather, their traces have completely disappeared since a few months ago. I had doubted that it could be another location, but after finding this place, it has the highest probability. That's our conclusion. Naturally, it was a credible speculation, and also one that was highly probable, with Hakugen and Regia already speculating about normal murderers having set up base in abandoned monster tribes and dens. Amongst them, an earthworm den would be perfect to set up a base in. Since when they penetrate Earth, they create quite a decent dot-sized path. As such, for the enemies, hiding in a den like this was extremely good, which is also already known to many thieves as well. The reason being that it was easy to install traps. With quite a lot of people possibly tracking him down, it was also great at erasing one's own tracks as well. Though, the fact exists that one sight will be limited due to the dark, but for monsters like our clan, it was rather an extremely nice advantage. MEV began to brightly smile after noticing my satisfied expression. Then, after stroking MEV by the hair, I spoke. Good job. It'll be of great help. Heh. Feeling great, MEV's wings unfolded as they trembled quickly. As expected, MEV does not disappoint. It was such a blessing have a very talented archer in the clan, but the fact that she'd always had that anticipated look on her face was a bit burdensome. It was a bit heartbreaking, betraying her expectations, but I had no choice but to speak to her. Gather the executives. We're immediately starting a meeting. Okay. Captain. With the Holy Order moving cautiously like they are now, we also had quite a lot to prepare ourselves. It was extremely ambiguous to try and attempt a sneak attack against them like the previous time within the dungeon, since I'm sure they were being mobilized while fully prepared. Unlike the previous group, they weren't heading for a specific goal, but an expedition that required awareness and tracking. The number of forces will definitely be large, with quite a lot of talented individuals. I had to use all that was available to me. Soon, the executives gathered, and all of them raised their hands to their chests in salute before sitting in their assigned seats. Everyone was waiting for me to speak. It's not accurate yet, but MEV has found where they are. It's a earthworm den, and, I too, believe that this kind of place would be one where they're most likely to hide in. No, I'm almost certain that this is true. After elaborating, the guys began to talk about the possibilities. Hakugen and Regia nodded, with the loyal 5 siblings following along. Certainly if it's a den of earthworms, then they can safely hide. With various tunnels, it's a great place for anyone to avoid and hide. Not necessarily the West, but I have heard of some green skins who live inside abandoned earthworm dens. Heian continued once Hakugen finished. But, is it possible that the tunnels can collapse if the walls and grounds become weaker? When earthworms move, they release a special fluid that prevents the tunnels and ground from collapsing easily, but it is possible. However, I would not necessarily recommend such an option. L.C. Just like Hakugen had said, when earthworms move, the special fluid that emits from them causes the ground to harden and solidify. The purpose is probably because they want to reuse the roads they pave anyways, but since I did not have a great interest in monster ecology, I was unable to check if it was true. If you focus on firepower, you can certainly break a part of it down. But in the perspective of the Holy Order, and for us as well, this was not a recommended option. It was because the murderers might be able to escape through another exit. As if Hakugen was in the same thought as me, it was decided that this was not a viable option in the end. Those guys are strong. So we must prepare readily to have a winning fight. If that's so, what do you think of entering by digging tunnels through another side? Regia had broached this suggestion. They are probably just preparing for their fight against the humans, and would definitely not anticipate us at all. Although it needs to be planned a bit further, I thought that entering through a different direction was a plausible option. It was an option I was thinking as well. We must prepare to fight. After reducing their force and strength, entering the cave is right. The problem is where we can stand by. Since the location of our trip and the den is far away, we need to first prioritize a place where we can hide our bodies. But it's not a bad suggestion. In other words, it wasn't a bad idea if, we too, were on standby underground, as well as creating new tunnels, that the earthworms didn't dig, ourselves. It's a great idea. The problem is the timing. Even though the expedition site had not been set, we can depart as soon as tomorrow. The expedition at Ahian City might be a bit late, but if we were not able to complete our preparations in time, then all our current actions would become meaningless. We had to wait anyways. With everyone concurring that it was a good idea, I slowly looked around. We depart now. With having no time at all, we began to mobilize immediately. I will follow your order. For Blood Dagger. Let's go. Giric. Let's make a new hideout. Start preparing immediately, and we will leave the moment we are ready. Gark and Hark, prepare the equipment. Hackhagen and Goblin Sisters. While we are creating the tunnels, you will wait on standby at a dependable food source that Mivi, Regia, and the archers will find for you. For Blood Dagger. For Blood Dagger. Other than pregnant women, everyone will be mobilized. You have all endured well waiting this long. It's the beginning of the battle we've been waiting for. TL afterward Calvies. Finally, we're going to see some action. TL notice. We have finally finished setting up our new Discord server and Patreon in replacement of sponsored chapters. I have also started translating I Am the Monarch, so please look forward to that project along with Dragon Poor and this. PR afterward Psi 101. Vote for us in NU. BM. Earthworms. I'm keep imagining a giant earthworm rather than some terrifying monster. PR notice. Calvies and us minions have taken, I Am the Monarch, under our wing, so look forward to that. Join us in our new Discord server for updates, suggestions, and discussions with other readers, patrons and us. Blood Dagger Clan Discord server translator. Calvies proofreader. Psi 101, borderline masochist. Chapter 83. You are listening at novelfull.audio. From their words, my eyes began to glisten, as my will to fight churned on due to my innate nature. Unexpectedly, the one who was most pleased was Heian, as it seemed that she had accumulated a lot of stress as of late. Let's go. In fact, I had already told the clan that a battle will arise soon. Thanks to that, everyone was on standby. Of course, there was some time until the actual fight, but Gark and Hark were extremely excited, despite the wait. After leaving the tent, the clan began to scream and holler. Since I had not told them to be quiet, it did not matter much, but thanks to that, the village became even more clamorous. It's battle time. Blood Dagger has declared that there will be a fight. What a glorious battle it'll be with Blood Dagger. He says pregnant women could not go. As expected, the village became lively in a flash. A real battle. It'll be a true fight in 1 week. Girick. 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 For Blood Dagger it was extremely noisy, and even MEV was smiling, as she merged with the tumultuous crowd. Heian, after looking at me, soon followed behind, as MEV began to announce loudly. Do not be disappointed if you cannot participate in this honorable battle. Your missions are also great. For the revival of the tribe. It was quite kind of her to take care of her subordinates and console them. As such, I did not say anything as Regia, Hackhagen, and 3 Goblin Sisters, all burst out from the tent after saluting me. Let's go. Girick. We must collect food in the meantime. Girick. Originally, the village was full of energy and vitality, but it was overflowing at the moment. During this boisterous scene, I could hear supplies along with equipment being packed and prepared. When the tribe was a bit small, I had helped out with these errands, but with the growth of the tribe now, everyone, including MEV, did not allow me to take part in that kind of work. Having the authority of the chief was the problem. As such, I slowly left the tent area and began to monitor and check out the camp to see if there were any supplies or belongings that might be missed during the preparations. For Blood Dagger. The clansmen greeted me when they sensed my presence. There were those who were happily moving the supplies and provisions, but there were also goblins carrying some of the larger loads which normally the orcs would carry. I even saw a group of 6 goblins carrying this gigantic bag. Despite no one ordering them, seeing how they were busily preparing and contributing to the clan in their own way, I found their appearances quite cute. Girick. This way. The meat needs to go here. Bring the human meat over here. Separate out the food which the chief will eat. Among them, there was the goblin who painted. As expected, he was preparing the flags blissfully. As if he would miss out on precious time with his newly born daughter Nicole, he was continually looking back at his tent. I approached him. Do you want to be with your family? I don't. I will become a glorious father who will win the battle for Nicole. Giric. For Blood Dagger. I had asked a useless question. His will to fight was bountiful enough. It was the same for the other green skins who were fathers. Be. Just like humans, they were all carrying on with their obligatory duties. After everyone had busily moved around, preparations were complete just like that. Gark and Hark raised the flag standards high into the air by my sides as I stroked the fur of Ibar. It was then that a figure began to walk over. It was Black Spear. I had told him in advance that there would be a fight, but having noticed the loud and bustling noises here, it seems he had come in search of me. You're heading out to fight? Yes, Black Spear. Will you join us? It was natural to poke at this. I was able to invite him with a much lighter heart than before due to our relationship being closer, and, with him along, the battle would proceed much more smoothly, and as such, I stared at him with a bit of anticipation. I would like to go, but it seems that I cannot accompany you this time, Blood Dagger. It seems that there are new green skins who are currently taking the warrior exam. I am not trying to boast, but we have received the right to aid them. Oh. Congratulations, Black Spear. It is truly good news. Very honorable, indeed. It was unfortunate, but it couldn't be prevented. It does not match his personality, but it did seem like he came to boast, even though he said he wasn't trying to. Seeing the truly pleasant and bright expression of his, that's what I felt. Probably, while we were engaging in our battle, he'll be heading over to the land of glory. Strength, wisdom and honor. Strength, wisdom and honor. So I mounted Ibar and we began to slowly ride out. Although Mev had not pinpointed the exact location, we wanting to be around the vicinity, and as such, we headed over. While we were marching, a goblin archer quickly rushed over and began to guide us. As if they knew I was desperate for time, they quickly located the place where we could start constructing, a quiet, barren place hidden far away from the narrow down position. Since we were moving underground anyways, it seemed that it wasn't hard for them to find a suitable base. Just as Mev previously mentioned, their base was quite far away. I had known originally how large the forest was, but I realized now just how much larger it actually was with this journey. But the path wasn't boring. We were able to hunt some evil beasts, and I also began to anticipate the foreboding battle. Soon, after a day or two, we discovered the location that Mev had found. Is it here? Yeah. I checked with the plant's roots. Though they're a bit far away, if we dig a hole here, then we will definitely reach their base. If Hei-Eon had checked with her roots, then it was definitely true. Even if she were to connect us to the end of their tunnel, it wouldn't matter. Rather, it would be comfortable, since it would allow us to move more stealthily in our operation. Not only that, but with the news that the Holy Order had not departed yet, it seems that we had enough time to afford in this operation. Perhaps if it were Hasty summoned in charge, then they would have left immediately, but it wasn't so with the righteous knight. As one who demanded perfection, he wanted to do things in an orderly manner. There's no mistake that it was an opportunity for us. I slowly began to scour my surroundings, as there were large trees and rocks surrounding us. It was a perfect scenario in proceeding with our plan. The chance of evil beasts appearing here was faint, and it looked like it had been quite a long time since humans had last came here. What was most appealing was that there was a river nearby. We had indeed brought water, but it was still joyous news. We will unpack and construct our temporary shelter. Everyone, unpack. We're constructing a temporary shelter here. From my command, Hark resonated the orders down to other clansmen, as the goblins and orcs began to busily move around. After a bit of rest, the Blood Dagger clansmen proceeded with the operation. Though we had no digging tools, the operation quickly advanced. It was because Hei-Eon had continued to move her roots and dig out the ground below. The orcs also continually shoveling out with hurriedly made tools which did not look anything like a shovel, and the goblins kept transporting the soil and dirt from what the orcs dug out. Everyone got covered in dirt, but they were working merrily. If it's with blood dagger, then even this kinds of work is joyous. It's work for battle. How could it not be joyous? Dirt and battle. Tunnel and battle. If Hayen's roots were like a forklift, then they were workers who did not know what exhaustion meant. Thanks to that, I subconsciously thought that they were guys who were specialized in labor. If they were taught the techniques and skills in constructing buildings, they would really be able to build one in an instant. Even after the cave was dug, Hayen's roots continued to display their brilliance, with Gark and Hart beginning to construct shelters with the already chopped up wood they acquired from the forest. Since too many people inside the cave might actually be ineffective, MEV and Hakagen were outside, as they were trying to plan and engineer a blueprint for the interior of the cave. Of course, I would be able to understand once I see it myself, but it seems that they were planning on roughly setting up an entrance and exit, while also studying the ecology of the earthworms to make a path. Of course, the goblin who painted was assigned to draw up a map. Funnily enough, the map was slowly being completed by one who was used to just drawing tattoos and making flags. Of course, the map needed a bit of work and minor details had to be updated, but this much was enough. After some time had passed, the tunnel we dug out was continually heading over to that goal. At this time, I sent a message to Ahayan. Becca Hayan. Yes. Yes. Savior.nim. I have waited. As usual, I could hear a bright and cheerful voice of Ahayan. Before I was going to ask the purpose of my message, Ahayan spoke first. I'm sorry, Savior.nim. It seems that the sacrifices will depart after a bit more time. They're late. No, normally, they were going to depart now, but after receiving further news about information of the cave's interior, it caused a bit of delay. So they have discovered their base. It was a joyous fact that certainly met our expectations. Boo, but the exact location, even though I had asked while laying low, I did not receive an answer, so, I'm sorry. Recently, the guy seemed to have truly fallen for Ahayan. Despite that, he did not reveal the core contents of the subject at hand. It was what I thought would happen from a cautious guy like him, but it was still a bit disappointing. No. Do not be disappointed, my disciple. Yes, yes. But please rejoice. I have succeeded in dispatching the martyrs as porters. Probably, if the disciples were to see Savior.nim, they would genuinely be happy. I can't wait. Yes, yes. Despite not relaying a command, with how the operation was advancing smoothly, it was quite pleasing seeing Ahayan. It was definitely correct in assigning her this task. As I previously mentioned, the Holy Order was coming with a company of small to middle-sized clans, so it was necessary to bring some workers or porters. The fact that Ahayan had placed some disciples there wasn't a hard task at all. The fact that she had done this regarding any unexpected circumstances which might occur, it was a job where she should be praised for by itself. In proportion to her blindly changing, she was also growing and becoming wiser. My young lamb. The day we meet. You will receive what you want. TL afterward Calvis. LOL, this Hakagen is basically a genius. Engineering skills, can do military administration and also manage the affairs of the clan. A great strategist, intelligent, and also has buff totems. That's like the perfect support character. TL notice. All future updates and announcements will be in the BDC Discord, as I do not want to spam updates and announcements on the main one. If you want to know the status of either one of these novels, Green Skin, Dragon Poor, I Am the Monarch, please check this before commenting/asking about the schedule/status/etc. PR afterward Psi 101. Vote for us in NU. Blood Dagger Clan Discord server translator. Calvi's proofreader. Psi 101, borderline masochist. Chapter 84. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Savior.nim, I think we will depart now. There are 20 members from the Holy Order Guild, 10 from the Sky Dragon Guild, and 20 from several small clans. Over 5 of them are higher than 3rd grade summoned. Well done. The location. It matches where Savior.nim is at. I have heard that they are heading to a Earthworm Denver. Our formation consists of 5 priests, 5 magicians, 5 archers, and asides from that, the rest are comprised of melee classes. Time passed, and when the cave we dug out reached the front of the Earthworm Den, we widened the cave slightly before constructing a stronghold there. Thanks to that, we had time to recover our physical strength and have them wait leisurely for the upcoming battle. The place where we are currently expecting to connect to was the back end of the den. It was the best condition to infiltrate while attacking them from behind their backs. In the meantime, we concentrated on recovering our health. Regia, along with a few assassins, began to acquire poison, while those with dexterous hands transferred the remaining poison to the potion bottles. After entering the Earthworm Den, we were going to use these either on the walls or exits so that they couldn't escape. As such, 2 days later, I received a message from Ahian. We are entering. Good job. Keep reporting the situation. Yes. They began to enter the den, and I immediately informed the clan. We're advancing. After the low voice of mine echoed, the orc warriors began to knock down the walls in front of us with their pickaxes. Woah-ah-ah-wah-ya. Woah-ah-ah-ah-ya. Battle time. Battle time. They were pounding the walls more vigorously in contrast to when they first started. Naturally, the dirt wall began to break down little by little. Despite there being no treasure beyond this wall, I didn't understand why my heart was beating so much. Of course, I was not the only one with such feelings. Everyone was staring at the walls full of excitement and expectation. Then, with a loud boom, the walls of the den completely collapsed. What appeared in our view was a grand, dark tunnel. There was no end to be seen, as it was like a dark maze. We're going. Victory. For victory only. For Blood Dagger. For Blood Dagger. I quickly lead the vanguard as we marched in. The raucous odor was the first thing that swarmed us, as it seemed that, despite the earthworms disappearing from here for quite some time, their fluids and odor still remained. Despite being a cave that was dug without tools, it was more sophisticated than ours. Dark and silent. It was like the entrance to a labyrinth. It lacked no shortage of being an ideal battlefield ground for us to fight in. First, we had to fully grasp the map of the cave since the Murderer clan and the Holy Order were here. Before they engaged in fighting amongst themselves, we must finish all of our preparations so that we can take the advantage. Thanks to that, the assassins and archers quickly advanced in. Among them, Mev was the most motivated, as the hands of the drawing goblin began to quickly move his hands. I rushed out at Mev. Mev. Yeah. If you feel any tracks or senses of humans, immediately report to me. Okay. It's fine now. I don't see anything. I'll come back. Since we were at the end, it was likely. If the Murderer clan and the Holy Order were located near the south of the cave, then we were in the north. Although I couldn't predict how they'll collide, they'll probably engage somewhere midway. We had to move carefully, since there was no hope of victory if we were to engage them before a fight occurs between the Holy Order and the Murderer clan. It matches. Girik. It matches. Girik. Hakugen and Mev were already memorizing the map, as the assassins rushed over, checking to see if the map matched with the physical landscape of the cave. Thanks to that, Heian was able to use her roots to locate the installed traps here and there. It was a slight tremble, but I began to feel something from the cave. Girik. It was not a misunderstanding. The other goblins felt the tremor too, as they all began to anxiously look up at the roof of the cave. It was only slightly, but the cave was clearly shaking. This isn't good. I quickly ran, as the clan slowly halted as they searched around their surroundings with puzzled expressions. It was then. Boom! A large explosion swallowed the cave, as it felt as if the cave was going to collapse on them. It was such a loud, deafening noise, that it even stung my ears. It wasn't our side that the cave collapsed on, but where Ahian and the Holy Order were, as they were advancing from the south to here. Then, I began to think that even the ground was falling down. It was then that my ring began to flash suddenly. What followed immediately was Ahian's voice. Saw. Savior.nim, trap. It's a tra. Kaya Aawia. Trap, damn. Heian. Heian. Immediately prepare your spell. Yes. After my shout, she began to hurriedly cast and chant something as she ordered her roots to provide support in case the ground were to collapse. It didn't matter what was happening right now. The priority was saving the tribe. We are gathering with the plant as the center. Girik. The hobgoblins, who were a bit further astray from the group, quickly returned. But the cave was continually collapsing. Of course, with the size of the cave, it didn't completely collapse, but it was a large enough range to completely smother in both the Holy Order and our clan. As such, I assigned Gark, Hark, Regia, and Hakajan all to the area next to Heian. I couldn't find the small group of assassin goblins and the drawing goblin though. Damn, what was most alarming was that I didn't see Mev either. As I was in the midst of swallowing my saliva, I saw Mev rushing over from afar while calling out to me. It was as if I was watching a disaster movie, as the ground was incessantly collapsing behind her. Captain. She had indeed separated from us quite a distance away. I quickly ran towards Mev, since I couldn't allow for her to die so ridiculously. Blood dagger. I could hear the shock of my clansmen, but I thought that maybe I could save her. Heian, cast magic to support the ground and the rest of you stay on standby. Gark, that includes you. Gark, who had been rushing forward, hesitated before returning, as Mev and I were slowly closing the distance. Behind Mev, the ground was collapsing at a rapid pace. There's no time. At this rate, both of them will be swept away. Reflexively extending her hand was Mev, and I reached out for her as well. The moment her hand and mine made contact, I instantaneously grabbed her and threw her behind myself, all in one motion. Captain. Heian. Simultaneously, Heian's voice screamed out. Large roots instantly wrapped around the clansman. Although she was rolling a bit since I threw her back too hard, I was able to see Mev join the clan, which was under Heian's protection. Let it reach. Heian was chanting her spell like crazy, as she was sending out her roots over my way, but there was no time. I was definitely about to fall. I stopped running while unsheathing my greatsword too large to be a sword and lifted it up high. With the mana of the ancient flame, the body fluids, which had hardened, were beginning to melt again. All of this was done to provide enough space for maximum movement possible after being isolated. Damn, it might be a useless action, but I needed to do whatever I can. But, betraying my expectations, the cave quickly collapsed, and I soon began to disappear from the sight of my clansmen. Captain. Woaa blood dagger. Mev, Gark, and Hark's voices echoed one last time before I lost consciousness. Koreak, I slowly opened my eyes. Somehow, I was still alive. For a moment, I considered if I had reincarnated once more, but thankfully that wasn't the case. It seems that the last desperate action I had done was somewhat effective, allowing me to move around inside the confined space a bit. I wasn't sure who had collapsed the cave, but they had done so completely. However, I was still able to discover a space in which a small body could squeeze through. The problem was that I was quite far away from the clan, and the fact that my left arm was not moving normally. Is it broken? It was a very worrisome injury, which caused me to hesitate in moving it recklessly. I began to sit down and ponder the situation. Before I had heard Ahaian's message, I had considered that she might have betrayed me, but if she were to do so from the start, then she wouldn't have used such an unsure method like this. Above all, it was an explosion that occurred from the south. It was highly probable that the Holy Order was swept away by the explosion. The casualties should be catastrophic if they were caught in the explosion directly. There were probably a few survivors at best. All of this was devised by the murderer clan. Noticing the existence and presence of the Holy Order, they had properly set up a trap for them. As for our clan, we were awkwardly swept in it. I dryly swallowed, wondering how things could have unexpectedly transpired to this. At least my subordinates were alive. Even if I was isolated, as long as there is enough of the food and water that I had brought along, they should be able to dig all the way here and bring me out. Though I was a bit worried about not seeing the few goblins, but since they were quick-witted, I thought that they would preserve their lives themselves. The problem was Ahaian, who was swept away by the explosion. It was an unfortunate loss to have her die here. I quickly tried to connect to her. Beck Ahaian. My young disciple. Sa, Savior.nim. Sa, Savior.nim, Savior.nim, her voice was very desperate, as I could feel some urgency. It seems that she was extremely worried, since I had lost contact with her. I was a little relieved, but I had almost killed Ahaian. It was my responsibility for not understanding the dynamics and plans of the murderer clan. I quietly spoke to Ahaian. I'm glad you're alive. My young disciple. How are things over there? Sniff, sniff, yes, Al, almost everyone had been swept away. Due to a sudden explosion, the majority of the Holy Order died. Although the ranged squads which stayed behind are alive, they were swept away and isolated by the collapsing ground as well. Savior.nim, are you with anyone? Yung Yuicheng, I'm with that bastard. Savior.nim, TL afterward Calvies. Finally, plans going awry. I was nearly mistaken for a minute that our MC, Blood Dagger, was omnipotent. TL notice. Not applicable PR afterward Psi 101. So the saga continues. Isolated MC, perhaps may team up with the Knight Disciple combo. BM. No, when will we find out the fate of the real MC, Drawing Goblin? PR notice. Hope you all had a good Valentine's Day. I know I was happy getting a bunch of cheap chocolate to munch on alone. T.T. BM Blood Dagger Clan Discord Server Translator. Calvi's Proofreader. Psi 101, Borderline Masochist. Chapter 85. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Of course it was a terrifying experience, but that was an expected response from Ahaian. Though she had recovered from her past trauma to a certain extent, whenever she was alone with a man, it was extremely scary for her. It was no exaggeration to say that it would recall her own obscure memories of the past. No, maybe the reason why she was so worried was because she didn't want to have her body tainted, which she had devoted to me. Sa, Savior.nim, what do I will come. Yes, yes. Continue to report to me and sustain the mana. Understood, Savior.nim. Though she was replying vigorously, her voice was still trembling. As a reputable guy, he wouldn't recklessly touch or attack Ahaian, but in extreme circumstances, one doesn't know how a man might change. Especially if he was wearing a mask, it would be even more so. Though I said I was going to come, I did not know where she was exactly. Seeing that air was flowing in, it wasn't like the place had fully collapsed, so I thought that there would be a blocked path somewhere. I began to recollect the drawn map roughly, but I couldn't remember. So I had no choice but to move on. Damn, since I needed to treat my arm, I applied a potion roughly on my arm within this small confined space before moving on. It would take nearly half a day to traverse from the north to the south where the Holy Order was. Since I could become lost, I had to move quickly. In other words, I had no time to afford waiting for my subordinates. As long as I inscribed my traces, they will be able to follow me. Moving along, I rummaged through my pockets to check for my food and water supplies. I could have left everything to the clan to handle things, but due to my old habits, I thought it was effective to carry a small amount of food and water at all times. Good. After walking for a long time, I saw a blocked path in front. If I were human, it would have been impossible to find this, but with my current eyes, it was definitely more comfortable. After checking with my hands, seeing that the walls weren't too wide, I decided to swing at it with my greatsword to see how it'll fare. As long as I dig at this with my large greatsword, and stick the ancient flame in the wall to melt it to fluids helping to disintegrate it, I should be able to quickly pave a way out. Ah, we don't have any food. Then, how? For now, wait for rescue, yes. I understand. I heard a Hyen's voice in between. Naturally, the situation over there was much worse than here. Since they had left the food, supplies to the porters and workers, this was the end result. Rather than moving around in a dark room, it was better to wait for rescue. It wouldn't be a bad choice to leave it be, but it seems that they're not considering utilizing the forest work body fluids. As long as they had means of melting the hard liquids. Applying a bit more pressure to my greatsword, with a loud clattering, the blocked cave opened. It was a road that headed towards the south. I was continuing to walk until I heard something. Girick, Girick. I was able to hear a goblin crying from somewhere. It's definitely not the original group as they weren't able to have joined the group together in time. After quietly closing my eyes and focusing on the source of the sound, I was able to sense the direction it was coming from, the left walls which was completely blocked off. It's me. Girick, BL Blood Dagger, it's Blood Dagger. A cheer erupted from the other side. They were voices of the map-drawing goblin and the other assassins who were separated from the pack. Blood Dagger has come to save us. Girick. In fact, I was isolated as well, but thinking I didn't necessarily have to say this, I spoke. Wait over there. I had to be very careful in digging the walls of the cave. If I were to have hit a weak point within the walls recklessly without the aid of Hyen's roots, it could cause a great disaster, so I first calmed them down. I will dig through the debris. Understood. We will wait. Once again, I restarted my operation. With melting the debris into fluids on the top part, I began to scrape at it with my greatsword. Attacking the weakest point of the debris specifically, I soon was able to break it down. Crumble. Though they were surprised at the crumbling sounds, but they soon displayed bright smiles in receiving of my appearance. For Blood Dagger. For Blood Dagger. Seeing them jump and cheer was quite cute. Little by little, I was able to create a hole in the wall, causing their small bodies of theirs to pass through the hole. There was a total of 3. As expected, there were 2 assassins along with the map-drawing goblin. For Blood Dagger. They welcomed me greatly with their small bodies as they hugged me. Normally, these actions weren't proper, but after overcoming a crisis that nearly caused them to meet their deaths without honor, it seemed that they were greatly worried. Especially, the one with the daughter was truly happy. I began to pat their shoulders one by one as they reverently followed me. Do you have the map and food? Yes. The most welcoming item in this situation. The map-drawing goblin soon handed over the map as I began to lay it flat out. Where are we now? Around here, Chief. It was still a long way away from the north exit, and it was quite a distance away from where a Hyen was. With the map in hand, I connected with a Hyen. Can you roughly determine where you are? Let me check. As long as they were not fools, they should at least have a map with them. In regards to the investigation which they conducted based on the interior of the cave, they should have a better quality map than us, that was also more accurate. It seemed that there was a guy like Hackagin on their end. At first, it was a bit confusing, but after continuing to listen to her explanation, I was able to roughly know where they were trapped. I checked. I will be heading over there now. Wait a bit longer. Yes. Savior.nim, I will be waiting. The assassins will continue to leave our trail behind. Venturing forth, we will be going south to fight with the humans. FO, for Blood Dagger. As if they found it admirable that I was looking for battle in this extreme situation, they began to look at me with glittering eyes of admiration and praise, once more as we headed out. But the problem with the passageways were not normal. Unlike the northern area where it was manageable, there were a lot of collapsed places, hinting at the severity of casualties and destruction which took place here. If I had not known that this was the Forest Worm Cave, then I wouldn't have imagined that this was the same place. O.org even this was a fortunate misfortune. Anyhow, preserving our food supply, we continued to walk forth as the situation became worse at Ahian's side. Firstly, they had no food or water. Secondly, although she could endure much longer mana-wise than a regular person, but with the hunger pangs and thirstiness, such matters would not simply disappear. Fortunately, the air did not seem to lessen, but it appears that Ahian was stressed out on another matter. Savior.nim. He's looking this side, I think. Since it was only the two of them in that dark place, there was the psychological struggle which Ahian had to overcome as well. As if he were watching voyeurism, it seemed there was lots of instances when the guy would blatantly stare at Ahian. What he was thinking, he didn't know, but from what I heard from Ahian, it definitely seems that his condition was strange. Of course I didn't know what changed with him, but as time passed while stress accumulated, the problem remained whether he would want to release that onto Ahian. As such, I formulated a hypothesis. If he had saved Ahian in the midst of the explosion, then he would come to despise her more and more as the arrival of the rescue squad delayed over time. There was also the possibility that his accumulated stress might convert into sexual desire, but he was definitely evaluating the situation broadly. The circumstances of dying here and escaping this place. The title and power that he possesses is like the honor of green skins. If he assumed that there was a possibility of escape, then he would have shown the correct behavior. However, if all his hope is lost, then he would not care what will happen in that instance. It was a personal thought, but I was definitely sure that he had not given up hope yet. I became a little nervous and moved faster. It was natural that the goblins quickly followed behind. 3 days later, when I had almost arrived and was consoling Ahian to endure longer while waiting a bit longer, it was then. A sudden scream erupted from the Covenant Ring. Savior.nim, Savior.nim. Kayawak. It was natural that my body reflexively jumped. As if the goblins were shocked, they quickly jumped up as well, wondering if something had happened. If she was a porter, then I don't know, but as someone who was considered my person, of course I had to move my body. The map was already engraved in my head. I continued to sprint ahead. Hearing Ahian's voice in the midst of it, I hurriedly became desperate. Fuck. Despite knowing that moving quickly would cause risks to occur, but I ignored it and automatically pushed through. The cave was shaking a bit, but it was enough to hold on. But when I had arrived, there was nothing in front of me. Was the map wrong? I definitely couldn't help but think like that. But listening carefully, I could definitely hear a voice. A voice filled with fear leaked out from the Covenant Ring. Or Nim, her voice could be heard from below. I looked at the goblins and ordered them. Wait here. Girik. For Blood Dagger. In case they could be under danger, I made them stay as I withdrew Ancient Flame and injected my mana into it. Instantaneously, heat churned out as I began to continually smash the ground below me, causing me to fall down. Bang! What was in front of me was Ahian, who I had not seen for a long time. She was covered in dirt as her dirty body was rolling around the ground at one side. Her clothes were ripped as she was looking up at me with a rather apologetic face. And then. It was a face I had not seen for a long time. It was an unkempt face along with a haggard appearance of someone who has not eaten for a few days entered my sight. As if the light was too bright, he wasn't able to look at me properly. Karayiak, he had a puzzled expression while his lower body was still exposed, uncomfortably dangling. I pulled out my great sword and rushed at him. Then, I muttered in the human language. It's been a long time. Son of a bitch. TL afterward Calvis. Sigh, in the end even the guy that was hopelessly in love ended up raping a girl. Damn, the cruelties of life is sure rough. TL notice. Happy Chinese New Year's all. Uploaded a bit late due to being busy, but here you go. PR afterward Psi 101. Psi darkness reveals our truest inner selves which we often hide in the light. On that note. Vote for GS on NU. BM. Not applicable PR notice. Not applicable Blood Dagger Clan Discord server translator. Calvi's proofreader. Psi 101, borderline masochist. Chapter 86. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The night after hearing my voice became utterly flabbergasted. Of course it was a shocking revelation that an orc could speak the human tongue. You. I immediately charged at him. The reason why I spoke in the human language was for one reason, I wasn't expecting to allow him to live. He will unconditionally die here. He's stronger than me, but it wasn't an exaggeration in estimating that his body is currently in shambles. It made me doubt how such a low-down, unsightly appearance as him could be praised throughout the known world as the righteous knight. Once I immediately raised my great sword, the guy began to turn his back, running towards the place where his weapons were. With his pants half off, he was holding his pants with one hand as he looked so repulsive. I was enraged. Just like how I had admired the Saint's sword once, he was also a person who I respected. Regardless of the situation, seeing him at such a despicable state caused me to be fully infuriated. I gripped my great sword tightly, as I decided to take advantage first. Extending my sword far back, just like Black Spear, I began to inject mana to the limits of my boundary before releasing the sword. The wind ripped through the air as the enormous speed caused the great sword to fly straight at him. Foo, fucking crazy. Startled, not having expected that I would throw such a large sword at him, a yelp escaped from his mouth. Ah! What I aimed for was the center of his body. However, his excellent reflexes allowed him to avoid the blow to the best of his abilities, as the sword grazed the side of his body. It wasn't a perfect success, but it was not in vain. There was some damage. Karayiak, subconsciously, my battle will churned on as my eyes reddened. Damn. Ms. Ahayan. I'm sorry for the recent event. For now please, treat this side. He was holding the side of his body with his hand, preventing the blood from flowing out of his body. Despite saying this to Ahayan, she had no thought of chanting a spell for him. Rather, she closed her mouth. With Ahayan like that, his expression hardened with every second. If you continue like that, we'll both die. It's not the time to be leisurely protecting one's pride. He spouted what he could, but anyone would tell that it was no less than utter bullshit. I laughed at such a feeble plea, as no matter how much he implored her, there was no reaction from Ahayan. With a sneer, I rushed at him, causing him to urgently beg Ahayan. Damn it! Treat me quickly. As the situation became more dire, his human nature burst out. It was said that within extreme situations can cause a person to reveal their true nature, but his appearance was completely different from the person I knew of. It was a short moment, but I rechecked his condition once more. The wounds on his waist was ambiguous to be deemed deadly, but it was constantly inflicting him pain. Another good bit of news is that he's not armed properly. Knowing that he'd no time in equipping the armor which he takes pride in as the righteous knight, as it lay rolling around beside the ground. The spear he was holding also looked quite decent. I did not know what functions it may have, but it was surely different from the spear that he previously used. It also had a different shape from the spear the Queen of the North wielded. But there was no deviation from the fact that he was wielding a spear. What continued to recollect inside my head was the fight I had against the Queen of the North. It was a good chance to test myself. I reached for my waist pouch and flung a dagger towards him. It flew at him in an instant, but he was able to deflect it immediately with his spear. Damn it. He finally realized that he had to fight me without her help. Despite holding in his injury to his side, seeing him rush at me, I could sense the strength and power of someone who was deemed an elite. If the spear of the Queen of the North was sharp and light, then his spear was heavy and powerful. It really suited him as a special class of a knight. It would have been better if you were wearing armor, right? Kariak. Fucking orc who can speak our human language. His eyes were uneasy, but he did not avoid my blows. Though he was able to exchange a few furious clashes against my sword, the heat gushing out was enough to be threatening. Nevertheless, he didn't withdraw his body, revealing his style of fighting. He may have noticed what level exactly I was in, but it did not matter. Of course, it was important to have the basics. The presence of a unique ability, ideal physical condition, occupation, and one's exclusive abilities. All of these were important, but I learned what transcended all of these. Momentum. Momentum was as important as one could describe. It wasn't simply an event of pushing or shoving, but an attitude combined with the demeanor of fighting in battle. Due to the body fluids of the forest worms on my sword, I wasn't able to fully utilize its heat, but it was enough for this guy to stress over its rising temperature. His parched throat aggravated the situation. In his perspective, he had to finish the fight quickly. Desperate, he thrusts his spear towards my head. I can see it. It wasn't fast at all. Combined with his depleted physical strength, I could easily glide past it. However, my mind was telling me not to deflect his attack. It was a powerful thrust. I turned my head slightly, evading his spear. The guy continued to struggle behind me. Normally, it was the swordsman who would try to shorten the distance against the spearman, but it wasn't like that in this scenario. With his waning strength mixed along with the constant bleeding, he was worried. Whenever his spear jarred against my sword, I intentionally activated the flames. The consistent sparks of the flames caused the heat to sputter out, reaching up as high as the ceiling. Injecting uninterrupted mana in my sword, I continued to pressure him. His movements had begun to change slowly, forcing me to realize something from his expression. Whenever I extinguished the flames, he would often feel more relieved. You were worried, what? That this cave might collapse. That you might be buried again. Kariak. I raised my molar up high as I laughed heartily. His face hardened, giving me the perfect answer. What was irking him the most was not me being an orc, nor the large flames, nor the heat which provoked his dehydration, but that the cave might collapse again. Amusing, how amusing. Kariak, looking at him, I continued to discharge more blazing flames. Raising his spear, he charged at me once again. It seemed that he did not want to commit suicide together with a crazy orc. No wonder he was in a hurry. You crazy orc bastard. The powerful thrusts of his spear was outstanding. It wasn't as overbearing as the snake-like Queen of the North, but it was accurate, swift and heavy. I'll deflect it. I will deflect it. I was just thinking that in my head, but I had thought countless times before of facing this kind of attack. I will deflect it away with my sword. It wasn't as easy to execute swiftly in action, as the timing had to be precise. I grasped Ancient Flame tightly, while staring at the spear blatantly, clearly indicating that I wasn't backing away. The moment his spear almost reached my body, I timely bent Ancient Flame down as I succeeded in crushing his attack. Great! Despite that, there was a dense shock vibrating through my body. But I did it. I blocked his attack. Ah! With that unfamiliar scream, he rushed at me as he continued to thrust his spear incessantly at me. But despite his attacks, he was slowly backing away. On the contrary, I kept moving forward, unrelentingly clashing against his attacks. The flames continued to churn out, as the heat became sweltering. My body became a torrid wave of heat. Due to excitement of the battle, steam drifted off me as I injected mana once more into the flames, causing my entire body to be covered in its flames. That stifling heat. Though the surroundings had not yet collapsed, it was on the verge of doing so. Seeing me like this, I could tell that he was obviously terrified. Implying that he didn't want to die miserably in this kind of place, he stared at me. "You, this fucking bastard, what's your identity?" That question caught me by surprise. He did not ask for my name or nickname. I did not know whether I should answer this with orc or green skin, but avoiding his eyes, I began to look at Ahian. Despite the intense heat, she looked fixedly my way. My identity is quite simple actually. I'm a lucky human who reincarnated into a green skin. But seeing her blankly staring at me, I couldn't help but make a joke. I'm the savior. You fucking bastard. Thinking that I was belittling him, he rushed at me with determined eyes. I poured all my remaining mana into ancient flame, reaching my limits, becoming very intimate with the flames. Those desperate eyes, yearning to live. His desire definitely was contained in that spear. But it was meaningless. The spear that was certainly heavy felt uselessly hollow. I'll break it. I will definitely step over this guy. Bang! I slammed my feet against the ground, as I could feel the weight shift onto my sword. His eyes shook once more due to the ground trembling. I extended ancient flame as far back as possible with both hands. His spear aimed to pierce right through me, as his spear glimmered due to his ability. I could not confirm his ability, but I did not avoid it. I'll break it. My sword with its large roaring flames. Against his shining spear. Clash, crack. The ancient flame swallowed his spear, as a heavy blow echoed throughout the cave, causing him to suddenly drop his spear. I could feel a large hole through my body, probably due to his penetrating ability. The after effects of breaking his spear had consequences. I nearly collapsed from the impact. I'll have to endure. I will never drop my sword as I stared at him with uncompromising eyes. Yuechang's eyes were fixed towards his dropped spear. I laughed. He wasn't even aware of me, as I was half confident of victory seeing that his eyes were fixated on his spear. He was definitely stronger than me. Despite his depleted strength and not wearing his armor, they might be minute reasons why he will lose. Or it could even be the wounds he bore at the start of the fight leading to his defeat. Yuechang's real enemy came from the lack of experience in encountering a real foe yet who will cause his downfall. Coward. I swung ancient flame at him. TL afterward Calvis. I'm the savior, nothing else needs to be said. TL notice. Sponsored chapter. Thank you. PR afterward Psi 101. The climatic duel draws to a conclusion, but wait. Will the knight perish or be saved? Vote for GS in NU to find out in the next chapter. BM. Not applicable PR notice. Not applicable Blood Dagger Clan Discord server translator. Calvi's proofreader. Psi 101, borderline masochist. Chapter 87. You are listening at novelfull.audio. TL note. There is some sexuality depicted. The first sound I could hear was his excruciating scream. I tried to chop his body in two with one blow, but he raised his arm to block the blow at the last second, causing it to fly off. Though he had survived, I wanted to tell him that it was a foolish decision. It was because living on would become greater torture for him. Shiite. The sound of the burning of flesh sizzled. Then I slashed off his legs and his other arm as he continued to scream from every blow. Ah! Eventually I gazed down at Yuechang, who had completely lost his ability to fight. There's something about having a strong foe crushed before you, which felt empowering, causing a mighty roar to erupt out with all my strength. Wah-wah-wah-wah. That dense voice echoed throughout the cave, causing the goblins above to also join in. For Blood Dagger. Our chief is strong. A true warrior does not know fear. Hearing their screams, I settled down a bit. It was then that I suddenly felt my body wobbling. It was definitely due to the penetrating effect of his unique ability. Looking down, I saw a large hole penetrating through my body. But I could not allow myself to fall down. Grabbing onto my sword strongly, which was firmly fixed into the ground to regain my balance. A Haiyan rushed over here in tears. Seeing that, young Yuechang shouted out in a dying voice. Ah, a Haiyan, quickly heal me, please. But where a Haiyan ran to was of course to my side. She didn't even give Yuechang a glance as she hurried over to me. Due to her tears and runny nose, her distraught face was not normal. Savior.nim, sniff, Savior.nim. I'm really sorry that I wasn't of any help. Savior.nim, sniff, Savior.nim, trembling like a cute child, the sacred power emanating out of her hands pushed towards me. Subconsciously, I reached out my hand and stroked her head. She had grown a lot during this time as my wound started to slowly, but surely heal. I couldn't help but feel pleased. I could sense my body becoming energized. The burning sensation of my flesh did not feel so great, but certainly the effects of a Haiyan spell was as effective as her unique ability, which was devoted to me. But what was more impressive was how her love and devotion for me flowed out of her body. I could feel just how much she clearly wanted to be with me. Thanks to that, I re-evaluated her once more. I am fine. My disciple. Are you okay? Yes. I was almost dirted, but thanks to the coming of Savior.nim, I was able to protect my body. Seeing only her loving gaze towards me, I could feel somewhat warmth from it. But young Yuechang was so flabbergasted by this scene as his face crinkled from it. Fu, king, fucking bitch. No wonder it was strange. You conspired with that monster, shut up. How dare, from such an insult, a Haiyan screamed. It seemed that calling me a monster caused her to be uncomfortable. Yuechang was about to die anyways. Unaffected, I grabbed a Haiyan's chin and turned her my way. In reply, a Haiyan blushed and looked down from embarrassment. You suffered through a lot of hardships. The day we meet. I told you that you can receive what you want. Now tell me what you desire. To be honest, I roughly felt what she desired. With how many hints she sent over to me, I would be no less than a fool if I had not noticed. To be honest, there was no reason to hug her, but there is a need to do so. She was a combination of both competent and dangerous. To put it shortly, it was rewarding to hold her by the collar. Of course, there needs to be a lot of work done prior to sexual intercourse, but I had to turn the fire off first of all. I quietly looked at a Haiyan, causing her to redden. It was an expression which couldn't differentiate, if whether this was a dream or reality. Seeing her extremely embarrassed made her look really cute. I could not even. How could I? I told you to say it. Do not make me ask twice. With a blank face, she looked at me. After pondering for quite some time, she finally began to open her mouth with her eyes closed tightly. Then please hug me. If that's uncomfortable, I'm very sorry. It is not unpleasant at all, my disciple. What you desire is what you shall receive. Since my treatment was over, I raised my sword once more. It was to end the life of the guy who was still alive. He already knew that he will die as he bitterly continued to curse us. It was then that a Haiyan looked up to me and asked. If you do not mind, can we kill him after everything is over?" She said it so indifferently, that I began to notice the desire in her eyes. I knew what she wanted. Funny enough, she wanted to show herself in front of Young Yuechang. I did not know exactly what state of mind she was currently in, but I assumed that she was relatively trying to exact some sort of revenge in her own way. Since there was no change in killing him afterwards, after a quick glance at the ceiling, the quick-witted goblins disappeared. With her clothes almost non-existent, it became easy to do it. A small body, but it wasn't one without volume. Slowly touching her upper body with my hands, Ahaian's body soon trembled. So sorry, that I did not know exactly what she was apologizing for, but her nice reaction excited me as well. After undressing her lower body, I could tell that she was extremely wet. Seeing her naked, trembling body, I was extremely aroused, but I did not tell her this. It was because, aside from teasing her, since she had worked hard with love for me to the bottom of her heart, I also thought that I should do my best for her. I bit her breasts lightly as I slowly licked my way across her chest, causing her body to tremble. Whenever my molar had poked the center of her whole body from head to toe would shiver, which was really cute. Hiya. Savior.nim, I was touching her waist with my rugged hands, as she continued hugging me tightly since she could barely hold it in. Of course, I was on the verge of exploding as well. Since my thing was a bit bigger than a human's, perks as an ancient orc, I was initially worried, but since there was a lot of water, I was a little bit relieved. Savior.nim, please, she did not necessarily specify what she wanted, but I knew what she meant. With her constantly pushing those hips into mine, I really couldn't believe it that this was the woman who currently had a trauma. In order to meet her needs, I pushed my hips forward as I slowly began to melt the resentments of her heart away. In the meantime, there was loud noises coming from the corner, as Yuechang ranting out in foul language with a very furious face. Fucking titch, prostitute. Like bitch. I was foolish to like you a bit. Dirty bitch. Fall to hell, bitch. Despite on the verge of dying, he wasn't the slightest bit hesitant of resting his mouth. Since it was not my fetish to do it while someone was watching, so I was thinking of ending his life with my dagger, but after seeing Ahaian's expression, I decided to continue. After I slowly thrust my waist forward, she was extremely surprised as her small body received my thing. As soon as I entered Ahaian, her head flung high into the air, as I could clearly tell that she could feel me wholly. Savior.nim, ayaya. In concern for her, I stopped for a second, but interestingly enough, her waist was continuing to move. Whenever a moan emerged from her mouth, an insult would also arise from Young Yuechang, as he felt repulsed at what he was forced to watch. It felt extremely awkward holding the woman that the guy had once liked, but it aroused my nerve strangely. Above all, Ahaian was staring at me only as I returned back to the pleasure. Shit, after a bit more time had passed, Ahaian had fallen for me even more as she continued to call for me. Savior.nim, she had already orgasmed several times I think, but it seems that she was still not satisfied. With her tightly grabbing onto my thing, it was as if I was seeing a baby cat holding onto me tightly. After a bit more time, exhaustion slowly began to overwhelm me. In the end, I ignored all of my surroundings and began to only concentrate on Ahaian, as Young Yuechang's voice nor the cave were no longer visible to my naked eyes and ears. As if she was extremely pleased, she had closed her eyes as I could even see tears trickle down her cheeks. From that, I couldn't help but stroke her hair back once, which caused her to open her eyes in shock. Instantly, she blushed as she clung her arms around my throat. She was looking up to me, implying that she needed a kiss. I too extended my lips forward. The structure of my mouth was a little different, so it was a bit hard, but we were able to entangle our tongues in the end. With her small mouth, I spread her mouth as wide as possible and sucked her tongue as I tried my best. Thanks to that, Ahian's hips raised once more as her whole body was trembling from the aftershocks. I could definitely feel that she was slowly climaxing. I too was on the verge of ejaculation. Since I was concerned of impregnating her, I was trying to withdraw, but Ahian executed a leg lock onto me as she did not let me go. I couldn't tell if she knew what she was doing, but I continued to try and pull back while she was squeezing me with her legs for dear life. Savior.nim, In the end, I accepted my mistake as I could feel sperm burst out into her while she hung her body in the air exhausted. Ahian had not told me, but it seemed she was already beyond her limits. Recognizing my mistake, I brought out my water bottle and began to provide her some water, as her eyes slowly opened. Thank you. Sniff. Savior.nim. Thank you. It was an expression that couldn't differentiate between reality and dream once again. In her eyes, it was as if she was in the bosom of God according to her thoughts. Then I looked at the corner of the room and saw Yung Yuechang screaming as he was slowly dying. Due to the immense blood loss, he had lost a lot of energy in his voice. After roughly finishing, I began to slowly approach him. By TCH, me too. Ridiculously enough, I saw him in an erect state. Having enough of this, after seeing Ahian's sparkling eyes at me, I raised my sword and struck down directly. Then I began to hear a voice I have not heard in a long time. Not too precise, but it was a voice I had not heard in approximately 1 year. Due to enough accumulated experience, I had obtained the opportunity of evolving into a new species or changing classes into a special class. After soon checking the list, I was forced into a dilemma. TL afterward Calvies. Well, at least Ahian got what she wished. Sad that she got the love of the Savior first before MEV, but I'm sure that MEVs will be more romantic and rewarding in the end. TL notice. Unable to do bonus chapters this weekend, due to IATM, but we'll try to make sure to have some for next week. PR afterward Psi 101. Well, that was an intensifying 5 minutes of happy endings. BM. Not applicable PR notice. Not applicable Blood Dagger Clan Discord server translator. Calvi's proofreader. Psi 101, borderline masochist. Chapter 88. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Impressive. You have won the battle against a very strong human. A special class is opened. New special species has opened especially for you. You have received a rank up. Please select from the following. 1. Ancient Orc High Gladiator, 2. Minotaurus Intermediate Gladiator, 3. Half Ogre Intermediate Gladiator, 4. Lesser Asmodean Intermediate Gladiator, Special 1. Ancient Orc Archaic Warrior, Special 2. Ancient Twin-Headed Orc Intermediate Gladiator. Why is there so many? There were too many choices. Though I had initially speculated there would be a lot of fine choices in the start, I had never imagined that there would be 6 of them, no less the number of species who had been made available. Not only that, there were 2 special classes, including a shocking 3 species which could clearly be deemed as upper-tier races, far above the current ones. Discovering the half-ogre class, I could definitely deduce that Goff had evolved faster than me, and note that there was no choice of a troll or other special races. It seemed that the system had decided that it did not fit me. I had to decide carefully. For now, I decided to listen to the explanation of what an archaic warrior entailed. Perhaps a condition of opening this option is to defeat a superior opponent wielding the ancient flame sword. Since I had not utilized my unique ability much, I'm sure this reason is why such a class opened. Special 1. Ancient Orc Archaic Warrior. Archaic warriors will never retreat from battle. He may be a human, but values honor and righteousness more than anyone, as he always fights in the forefront of every battlefield, always ready to jump in with his lifetime companion. Sword proficiency will greatly increase. As expected, it seemed likely that Ancient Flame will become a lifetime companion for him. The fact that swordsmanship proficiency would be greatly enhanced was also beneficial, but despite that he could not gain an increase in proficiencies for other weapons, which was rather quite unfortunate. Once I returned back to the list, I recalled the description of the other special species, the ancient twin-headed orc. Special 2. Ancient twin-headed orc intermediate gladiator. Among the ancient orcs, the twin-headed orc is considered as one of the rarest species. A species born once every few billion years. Strength, vitality, dexterity, are several times more superior than a regular ancient orc. His field of view is wide as well as adept in all weapons, also all weapon proficiency is increased. This guy was truly perfect. A flawless species which needed no words. If I were to evolve into this guy, then perhaps I would achieve the most efficiency out of it, but the problem was, it has 2 heads. I had no way of knowing if the spirit would be separated or that a new personality would be planted, but I did not want to commit to a big gamble of evolving into this species. I have certainly heard stories where there were monsters who had twin heads, but they were all guys who could not be labeled normal. Nevertheless, it didn't change the fact that it was extremely unfortunate. If I had evolved into this guy, I could sense that Choi Solji and Becca Hyen will abandon all trust or hope for me while leaving me in the dust. This then left me with only the High Gladiator, Minotaurus, half-ogre, or the Lesser Asmodean. Just like the previous reason, he had no desire of having a cow head, so it also was an unconditional skip. For one, obtaining a larger frame may be advantageous in battle, but it is not always the big guy who necessarily achieved victory in battle. Rather, it would be more advantageous to have a small body for the way I fight. The size of a half-ogre is a little bigger than that of an ogre, but if I were to jump into the line of the half-ogre strain, then it would be a bit ambiguous in evolving into an ogre later. In conclusion, I had to decide between the High Gladiator and the Lesser Asmodean, one of these two. If I were to change class into a High Gladiator, I would definitely become stronger. My strength and dexterity will definitely increase along with my weapon proficiencies. I slowly recollected the information concerning the Lesser Asmodean. 4. Lesser Asmodean Intermediate Gladiator. The Asmodeans are born and raised within a cursed land. Though it is true that a cursed human has become a green skin, there is still a veil on how the Asmodeans have appeared in the cursed land. Though their vitality and strength is a bit less, they are more specialized in dealing with mana. They do not wield weapons very well, and due to their lack of physical strength, they hold a medium physical ability in comparison to other green skins. Iffy. This choice was truly ambiguous. The best option may be to maintain the species of an ancient orc, but the differences are that there is still room for growth. He was doing better than before, but he could feel the limitations of his talents now. If he trains as an ancient orc, he will definitely become stronger. Just looking at the goblins like Green Goblin and the orcs like the Patriarch, it was clearly obvious. However, there was also the problem of not taking advantage of evolution. Just looking at the choice of Lesser Asmodean, you could truly evolve into an intermediate towards a higher species unlike the ancient orc. If there were more species that I could evolve into as an orc, then this would be a different story, but he was forced to decline such choices of evolving into a twin-headed orc. Ugh, grabbing my head, a Hyen looked at me worried. My strength and vitality was dropping, but I could clearly recover these through training, considering how there were humans who have greater strength than me. Seeing how I needed a lot more mana for Ancient Flame, I thought that this should be the right choice. The other choices were extremely unfortunate, but I considered that having a body similar to my past build would certainly reduce the discomforts. Moreover, I began to feel the compression of my muscles. It was hinting the drastic change that was to come for my body. Ugh. Since the difference of species existed, it was a painful time, especially with the wounds I had acquired. The headache increased as my whole body was overwhelmed in such torturous pain. Then, a completely different body compared to my previous one slowly began to emerge within my view. Saw. Savior.nim. Surprised, Ahayan was blankly staring at me. So. This is the true appearance of Savior.Nim. I was extremely curious of what I now resembled. Seeing Ahayan's reaction, thankfully it wasn't a bad choice at all. Looking down, I could see the changes occurring with my arms and legs. With the pain resonating on my forehead, I grabbed it while feeling two horns slowly spouting out. As a lesser Asmodean, the horns weren't that big, but they were not without impression. Also, the canines of my teeth had become much smaller, as it felt quite nice having smaller teeth in regards to my orc life. Though my green skin remained intact, the tone of my skin had become much darker. Grabbing Ancient Flame Sword and swinging it around, fortunately as a higher species, I did not lose that much physical strength. Though the robust feeling of my muscles were no longer there, I became much more agile. I could also feel a great increase of mana within my body. I slowly looked around, looking for the great sword that I had thrown. There was still quite a distance away from the weapon. In the past, I could barely switch weapons when I was right beside it, but for some reason, I thought that it was possible to switch the great sword with the ancient flame in my hand. I gently reached out, injecting mana to activate my unique ability. I felt a different kind of energy, and suddenly the sword I was holding and the great sword embedded on the ground began to change positions. Unique ability weapon switch will rank up. Weapon switch. The range in which you can switch your weapon has increased. Using the switched weapon increases critical rate for a set period of time. Perfect. I could definitely feel myself becoming stronger. It was just that it was not as visible to the naked eye. With the empowered range by the system, my unique ability had become stronger. Savior.Nim, amazing. Koreak. Thank you. At this time, I was curious. Do you perchance have a mirror with you? After asking, Ahayan went over to her backpack and rummaged through it before taking out a mirror. I had asked since she was a woman, but for some reason, I had a funny idea she was carrying one due to wanting to look good in front of me. I reactivated my unique ability once more, switching the location of the weapons as I ignited a small flame. Unfortunately, there was no sign of the previous Kim Tae-sung of the past. That familiar green skin blended well with the atmosphere strangely. It was then that I knew why Ahayan had reddened after seeing me. Not bad. But from the viewpoint of the goblins, it was a bit disappointing. As expected, the goblin who draws maps along with the assassins screamed when they saw me. Girik. Blood Dagger's majestic face has disappeared. His handsome face is gone. Now hold on. He's still handsome. He changed so wonderfully. I want to become like Blood Dagger too. I want to have horns on my forehead. The words pertaining to my still handsome looks was most likely flattery. But if those words were actually true, then I really couldn't understand the criteria for what was handsome from their view as green skins. Anyhow, just because my face had changed didn't damage my authority, so I moved together with Ahayan. We will return to the care of the clan. Savior.Nim. What should I do? It's better for you to look for the surviving humans. There should still be survivors if you head towards the entrance. My disciple, you must return together with them to the city. Yes, I understand. Savior.Nim, do not lament. I also want to have you by my side. But you have a job to do, have you not? Yes, Ys. That is so, Savior.Nim. Seeing the lamenting Ahayan, I added a sentence of consolement which caused her to regain her spirit. With this extremely large cave, I suspected that there would definitely be survivors. There was a high chance that a rescue squad was already working from above. If she were to return back alive alone, it would definitely bring a lot of suspicion, so I had to send her back together with the other humans. As such, Ahayan and I started to search for our clansmen first. I thought it was best to look for survivors after leaving this place. After walking back to the path I came from for quite some time, I began to feel the presence of others. Soon, I began to hear voices. The captain is surely nearby. I have followed his trail. Blood Dagger will surely not die. He's an immortal warrior. Everyone was following the way I had traversed through. Smiling, I quickly ran ahead first, wanting to see my clansman after a long time. TL afterward. Pretty nice heartwarming chapter. Also, love the change into Asmodean, though it would have been funny to see him evolve into a twin-headed orc. Psi 101. Oh, an Asmodean, huh? Start pimping yourself, MC. Translator. Calvi's editors. Psi 101 borderline masochist. Chapter 89. You are listening at novelfull.audio. My heart was also beating fast in anticipation of them seeing my new self. Unknowingly, I had accumulated quite a lot of affection towards them over the years. Turning around the corner of the cave, I began to see my Blood Dagger clansmen also running towards me without rest. Interestingly, despite the drastic change in my appearance, they recognized me instantly. Whoa, yeah. Blood Dagger is alive. He returned alive as an Asmodean. Awesome. Blood Dagger is awesome. The first two who came over to me was Gark and Hark. I speculated that they would have not recognized me at first glance, but it seems they'd roughly known at once looking at those swords I wore. The person who came afterwards was Heian. Her eyes were swollen as she began to hug me, before tears soon erupted. Sniff, sniff, why did you not come to us? That I could have made an excuse about how I had something to do, but I kept those in silence. Hakugen also came over with a welcoming gesture, quite relieved from having to worry too much as well. On the other hand, as if she was confident that I was alive, Regia did not show much reaction. But after having eye contact and seeing her smile, I could tell that she was extremely comforted. I should have known that everyone was safe. Are there any dead? There is none. I had assumed the goblins with the chief were already dead, but it is surprising seeing them appearing alive besides you. The captain rescued us. Blood Dagger rescued us from the cave. Seeing the goblin who draws maps and the other goblin assassins' boisterous shouts like this at Hakugen's words caused me to chuckle from their cute appearances. All of them saluted once towards me with their hands on their chest, and strangely enough I was unable to see MEV within the group. I asked the clansman. Where is MEV? From my question, everyone cleared a path as MEV soon appeared alongside the three goblin sisters comforting her. I'm sorry, Captain. Her face was an absolute mess of tears continually trickling down her face. She feebly tried to wipe it away, making me realize why she couldn't come near me. She had the impression I had sacrificed myself saving her while ending up buried instead. Her face was extremely flushed red combined with her swollen eyes as she continued to weep. Strangely, even her pride had crumbled. Despite no one blaming MEV for this, she was still stressed out from all of this heavy guilt. As someone who had spent a pleasurable time with a Haiyan, it was a heartbreaking scene to watch. I began to feel some responsibility. This was definitely not MEV's fault since she was separated from the clan not by her own accord, but due to enthusiastically performing the mission assigned to her by me. It's not your fault. CA, Captain, a short remark, but it was enough to wipe away the burdens in her heart. She jumped into my embrace, sobbing with her runny nose. I stroked her hair back as she continued to weep on my chest, which caused her body to shiver once as the teary reunion came to a close. But Captain, has your body really changed? That is so. After everyone had reunited, along the way to the entrance, the hottest subject at hand was my body evolving. I liked the previous face more. Well, it doesn't matter. This appearance strangely has its own charms. I like this one better. From MEV's words, a Haiyan retorted. Since she was initially a human, she would definitely like this side of me more. Thus, though we were walking like this, in truth, moving was very uncomfortable. She had not completely recovered, but the somewhat energized MEV stuck by my side as she held my arm tightly while trudging along. Not only that, even a Hyen was doing the same, as both were walking as close as possible besides me. Thanks to that, it was funny watching Hark and Gark expressions of how they lost an opportunity to assist the chief, but it was quite amusing. In contrast to their expectations, it was only I who had enjoyed a bloody battle reaping huge gains in growth, but the shock from when I had returned from the dead caused their desires for battle to simmer silently. Captain, then what will we do now? For now, we are returning to the village. It is meaningless to fight. The enemies have all died, and even if there are survivors, they won't be worthy opponents. It's unfortunate, but we must wait for our next opportunity. From those words, Gark and Hark added fire into the mix. It may be unfortunate that we couldn't fight in this expedition, but having Blood Dagger become one step greater is in itself an extraordinary achievement. He is Blood Dagger, who's returned from the depths of hell. He's returned from hell with horns. To roughly explain, this was the reaction. For some odd reason, this was the response accumulated from the clan in that I had somehow returned from the depths of hell. I could even imagine this story of me returning from hell in such an appearance will provide the first page of the legendary Blood Dagger, which will in turn even cause others wanting to evolve into an Asmodean as well. Spending our time merrily, it was a long time before we discovered the entrance. Originally, leaving outside via the original entrance was quickest, but since shattered debris obstructed us here and there would be too many delays, so we decided to head out from the entrance we dug out from. It's fresh air. Girick. So nice. Outside is the best. The three goblin sisters were cheering in outside, embracing the freshness of the air. The others were the same while soaking in the sun, finally being able to escape the stuffy feeling inside the cave. Now once survivors were identified, I could sneakily send a Hyen back away and conclude this expedition, so I was about to head out and search for the remaining human survivors. It was then. Smell of blood. After evolving into an Asmodean, my senses became more developed, allowing me to smell blood from far away. But what I could discern was an even stronger ominous aura. It was only I who could sense the uneasy atmosphere here. Everyone was unaware of the current situation right now. Suddenly, goosebumps began to wholly cover my body. Perceiving that something definitely was happening, I couldn't help but swallow back my saliva. Unknowingly, sweat began to drip. My hands and lips, and even my legs began to tremble excessively. Noticing my condition, Heian asked me, "What is the matter?" I wasn't sure what was happening either. But, what I was certain of was that we needed to leave this place immediately. We are returning to the village at once. As fast as possible, immediate priority. Sensing the urgency behind my voice, the others began to look around. They couldn't see what was happening, but they too instinctively felt that something was wrong. We are returning to the village. We will follow the orders of Blood Dagger. But that ominous aura continued to pass through me. I wasn't sure what was happening, but a scream escaped me as I was looking at the empty forest. And then, a small voice emerged from that empty forest. A very ominous voice was clearly inscribed into me. Human. Ha! There were monsters here too. I was trying to kill the Holy Order, well it doesn't matter. Murderer. Hearing a voice claiming his attempt at killing off the Holy Order, made no mistake that he was a murderer. He had not shown himself yet, but his voice caused everyone including me to stop momentarily. The odor he emanated was surely that of a predator. Funny enough, we had become nothing but grazing animals in front of such a predator. I had already estimated that it wasn't a normal person who could have prepared this kind of trap in the first place, but had already forgotten about it. Even so, I suspected that it would be someone on the level of Hound Clan. I could have never have imagined that such a monster like him would be the protagonist of this trap. But this was completely different. This person was not a hound at all. Spider, a murderer clan which consisted entirely of elites. In the past, there were many names who became infamous. Most of these had died under the hands of Queen of the North, but these guys were still active even before I died. I did not know why a person like Spider was here, but he was obviously one of the last humans I wanted to make an enemy out of. Please go, I subconsciously began to pray. I have not heard about Spider hunting monsters before. For some unknown reason, he targeted humans the majority of the time. Everyone began to swallow their saliva until his voice echoed once more. Since there are no moles coming up, should we play a bit? Killing intent. I had never imagined I would encounter such a monster so soon, after stepping outside. The cave we dug was clearly in the north. The moles he was referring to was probably those of the Holy Order which were climbing up from the other entrance. In other words, this person's range was very wide. Then, I began to feel him running at us from a distance. I had no idea how his voice had carried to this place. One thing I was certain of was that we're going to die. It was a situation that could cause our deaths. I quickly started to look around. After listening to my words, I was able to see the clansmen were not moving at all. MEV, Gark, immediately take the clansmen and withdraw. I will not abide any excuses. Retreat our forces unconditionally. Ha! I said to run away. Boo, but, what about Captain? I will not tolerate any further questions. The look on MEV was changing. It was an expression that did not understand what was happening, but Gark was able to sense an enemy was soon approaching. He then spoke to me. I will fight. I will fight together with Blood Dagger. I will not run. We will fight together with Blood Dagger. Hark also hollered, but there was no time to accept this childish play. Gark. Koreak, I specifically ordered you to run away. I spoke to him with killing intent in my eyes, which caused him to shut up. He could feel the honesty in my words. In a clan, the command of a chief was absolute. If one did not follow the order of a chief, there was nothing more disgraceful, even more than running away with one's tail between their legs. Seeing my eyes, Gark and Hark began to slowly back off, taking Heian too. It was then that I saw the person. In his hands were two swords which were too short to be long swords and too large to be daggers. That blurred figure became clearer in an instant. It was the first time I was facing an elite who was beyond my level. I pulled out Ancient Flame, swinging it towards him. TL afterward. Damn, things just got serious. And holy shit, the Queen of the North must be a legendary figure. How did she kill all of these guys? That's one overpowered character. PR afterward. Psi 101. Damn porters. Where are you when needed? Translator. Calvi's editors. Psi 101 borderline masochist. Chapter 90. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It was difficult to clearly scrutinize the person holding those two ambiguous swords from this distance. Injecting all of my mana in Ancient Flame, flames closely enveloping the sword as I charged forward. It is the first battle immediately after obtaining a body of an Asmodean. It was more agile than I thought it to be, as I was able to move my body quite easily at a fairly rapid pace. That person's face moved closer. A woman. It was a woman with short hair, with extremely crazed eyes. When I gazed into her eyes, I could feel the goosebumps jumping out of me as she smiled creepily, thrusting her swords down onto me. Even though she was slamming her swords down without any form, they were definitely aimed towards my joints. It wasn't even a blow with great power. She was playfully raising her swords, and playfully lowering them down on me. I will use all my strength. Rather than displaying an ambiguous amount of strength, I decided that it was rather better to fight her with all my strength as I began to churn my mana. A great deal of heat and flames began to surround me as I clashed against her swords. It was impossible to control the blaze of Ancient Flame before, but after evolving into an Asmodean, I had realized that I was able to control them to some degree. Then, I started to move them slowly the way I wanted, but she blocked it. She was definitely suppressing my flames. Then. Eek. Despite knowing that I intended to block her blow, the woman scraped my sword with hers in an instant. My flames were not threatening to her at all, and she was definitely scratching it. What I heard was an intensely unpleasant sound. Afterwards. Ugh. Blood began to burst out of my body instantly. Phuck. I was sure that her sword hadn't touched me, but after hearing her voice, I was able to realize roughly what her ability was capable of. That unpleasant sound had definitely inflicted damage to me. The invisible blade continued to bury itself through my whole body. The sound was probably a form of her unique ability which allowed her to change the sound into a form of either blades or inflict internal damage. While I was distracted for a second, a sword was thrusting towards me. I raised Ancient Flame once more to block her strike. But that creepy sound wave echoed through my body once more as blood began to pour out again. Shit, I was dizzy, as this woman was clearly toying with me. She certainly had the opportunity to kill me, but despite that, she did not try to attack me. It was a sign that she was definitely looking down on me. In other words, I was a bug that she could squish whenever she felt like it. Die. With that playful tone, she struck out her sword. All I could muster in time was a hurried block of her sword with Ancient Flame. Sheeite. Blarg. My whole body became tattered in an instant. It did not take long for the battle to begin, but that time span felt like an eternity to me. Victory and defeat had already been decided, but to be precise, it was correct to say that there was no hope for me here. I knew best better than anyone else of this answer. But I will not die in this place. I only had one opportunity. I began to slowly assess her movements. The moment she swung her sword, she turned to her left. While doing so, she consistently scraped my sword, inflicting constant pain on me, so I had no time left to react. It was important to monitor how she moved. Left, right again, left again. Soon, she disappeared from my sight. Die. Die. Back. A sword was flying towards me. I reflexively deflected it away with a dagger in my left hand and switched weapons with the dagger I was holding to the sword she was wielding with all my strength. Unique ability weapon switch. This was the one opportunity one was aiming for. I did not know if it was possible or not, but luckily, the rank up of the unique ability did not betray my expectations. The sword she was holding was replaced with the dagger in an instant. Ha! She had a puzzled expression, unable to comprehend what had just happened. But what was certain was that now my dagger was being thrusted towards me. Kariiwiak, I quickly activated weapon switch to quickly swap out her sword with my great sword too large to be a sword. I did not try to counter her blow. Instead, my great sword immediately came right in front of me and blocked her blow. She will probably scratch my great sword. Sheeite. As expected, blood began to simultaneously gush out of me. However, like before, the damage was not lethal enough. This was what I was aiming for. I did not mind my injury as I switched swords once more and began to thrust Ancient Flame at her face. She was flabbergasted. I pretended to be okay, but I was reaching my limits as well. In fact, I can admit that this was my final attack. I swung my sword at her. Sizzle, the burning fire soon shook as it swallowed her. I felt her body retreat, so I leapt forward and swung my sword at her. I caught her. She was definitely within my range. I began to look at her with an irritated face, and in the end, my sword had definitely struck her. When I thought that I had won, I heard a voice. Not bad, Asmodean Ajushi. Suddenly, my body was shoved against the ground. Damn, I could feel that she was on top of my back. A rat in a trap. I had thought that I had become stronger, but I had never expected things would end so simply like this. Such a ridiculous situation. I was surprised that this kind of monster existed, but it was also surprising that the majority of these people were cut down by the Queen of the North. It was hard to imagine that I could ever become as strong as them. Our levels are too different. Truly, she was on another level as she toyed with me. She probably revealed her true strength in that last attack which swallowed her. The movement which caused me to become stuck on the ground was evidence of her strength. My body was already in tatters, with my limbs showing no signs that it would function for a while. It was rather fun. Should I kill? I should kill, right? My life was dangling in her hands. I had no choice but to swallow back my saliva as I looked around. Due to her, I had no chance of checking out my clansmen properly. As if they had engraved the command I gave them, there were no signs of any green skins. It seems they have believed in me, more so than the fact that they had an obligation to heed to my words as chief. If they were still here, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that all the clan members would have been annihilated. With my body stuck to the ground, I turned my head and looked at her. She was extremely plain. A face that wasn't a rare sight to see outside the world. But such killing intent from her eyes was surreal. The moment I made eye contact with her, I could feel my whole body trembling before I even knew it. Noticing that I was trembling in fear, she looked down at me. What a good response. I should kill you. Fuck, when I had thought that I was fucked, it was then. Victory. For victory only. Girick. For blood dagger. Girick. Girick. I began to hear voices from a random place. I had definitely ordered the clansmen to return back to the village, but to hear these voices suddenly. They were not voices of Gark or Hark, but those of extremely normal goblins. Turning my head, I looked at the source of the voices. Mortified, they were the 3 goblins who had come out from the forest worm cave. The goblin who draws maps along with the 2 goblin assassins. They were the 3 whom I had inadvertently rescued from within the burrow of forest cave earthworms. When all of the clansmen had listened to me and were heading for the village, they had definitely hid themselves inside the cave. Due to this extremely confusing situation, even Gark and Hark would have not noticed it. I did not know why exactly they had not listened to me, but they were awkwardly running towards me. Fuck, what I was more worried about other than them disobeying me were their own lives. It was obvious, but there was no way for them to become her opponent. They will surely die in vain. I told you to run away. Subconsciously, I began to scream in a loud voice. The goblin assassin's movements were a bit fine, but the way the goblin who draws map was running were really awkward. I will repay your grace. Girick. I cannot let Blood Dagger die. Blood Dagger must live. Defying the chief's words can only be repaid with death. Hearing those words, I was certain. They knew that they would die here. I tried to raise my body, but the problem was that I could not move. I could not do anything with this woman holding me down. The woman, with an extremely interested expression, began to look at me. This woman knew that I did not want them to die. After sending a mischievous smile towards me, she immediately ran after the goblins. I knew what she intended. It was then that I finally realized why she liked to kill humans. Stop. For Blood Dag. The goblin assassin who was running in the front had its head cut off first. The goblin who draws maps in an instant began to sprint towards me. Abruptly, holding on to me, they dragged my powerless arm along as they ran for it. There is no reason why they wouldn't be caught. That woman was surely enjoying this situation. I told you to run away. It wasn't like I didn't feel grateful for them trying to save me by dragging my arm. I was definitely thankful for their desire to save me. But there was no point. They will die. Defying the chief's words can only be repaid with ADH. As expected, the other remaining assassin also fell down with a deadly sword pierced through its neck. All that remained of my would-be rescuers was the goblin who draws maps. Despite knowing that he would die, he was not afraid as continued to drag me continuously. It was heavy trying to drag me alone, he was panting as he pulled me, but I knew that he would soon become a pool of blood. I am a father who has lost his honor. I am a father who rebelled against the chief's words. Giric. Giric. Please tell her I'm sorry. In the end, he collapsed as well. 4. Blood, dagger. I bit my lips fuming in anger. I was powerless. So powerless and helpless. I had no choice but to ask myself what part of me had become stronger, or how could I exact vengeance with this much little strength. I wasn't able to protect Solji in the past, and I realized that now, I was no different from my past life. TL afterward. Calvies. Nico, Nicole father. PR afterward. Psi 101. That was freaking memorable, when the least expected characters step up to shine the brightest, a lesson for the MC to well remember, only the strong survive. Translator. Calvies editors. Psi 101 borderline masochist.